Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe we're already at episode 7 in this series that we're doing. Has anybody had a chance to make the watermelon gazpacho from last week? It's one of my favorite things, and I usually keep some form of a cold soup in my fridge all the time. But anyway, welcome back. Glad to have you here. And today we're gonna talk about the heart of what this brunch was about, which was the collective experience of decorating eggs. So I'm so glad you're here. Let's have some fun. So the first technique that we're gonna talk about today is really the most colorful of all the techniques that we're doing. So let's kind of go through what you're gonna need to be able to do this. So with this particular technique, we start with a hard-boiled egg. The other two techniques we're gonna be doing, we actually do the project and then boil the eggs. But for this one, we start with hard-boiled eggs. So you're going to need food coloring, Q-tips, rubber bands, you'll need a pair of gloves. I just so happen to have this little serving dish in all these colors, and I thought it was fun, so that's what I'm using to mix my colors in, but you can just use plastic cups as well, water, some vinegar, and then you'll need a tablespoon and a teaspoon for measuring. So that's everything we're gonna need. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to mix up our colors that we're gonna be using on the eggs. So just take your food coloring, and you wanna put, I don't know what the measured amount is, a good dollop into each of your containers. And like I said, I happen to have these, but little plastic cups work perfect. So we put our food colors in. Okay, so once we have all of our food colorings put in, we're gonna take, and again, these are just approximate. You don't have to be super precise, and don't worry that you're gonna mess up the formula by not being exact, but we're gonna put about 2 tablespoons of water in each of our containers. Okay, and after you get the water put in, then we're gonna add a teaspoon of white vinegar. Okay, now that we have our food coloring, our water, and our vinegar in, we're gonna go ahead and mix those colors. I like to use a fork to mix. So once you've got your colors mixed, now is where we wanna put our gloves on. As I mentioned, for this technique, we start with a hard-boiled egg, and you're gonna wanna take a piece of paper towel. I might not have mentioned this when I was going through what we'll need for this, but you'll need a piece of paper towel. And I have found that like a half sheet is just about the perfect size to use. I look at the egg and I like to put it top side down. So like the bottom of the egg is up. So you put that into the paper towel, and then you wanna fold up each side. And then from there, you'll pull up the other sides. And basically what you're doing is you're encasing the egg in the paper towel. You don't wanna pull too tight because you might rip the towel. And as we get into the technique and the towel starts getting wet with the color, you wanna be careful. You don't wanna like separate it or have it tear. I like to take a rubber band and very carefully just put a rubber band kind of around the end to hold the towel in place. And what this does is secures the towel in place so that you don't have to be gripping it when you're doing the fun part to it, right? And then I scoot the rubber band up just a little bit above the egg, because then that's gonna allow the food coloring to get down around on top of the egg and make sure the entire egg gets colored. Okay, so let's start adding color. So just take your Q-tip, and really there's no like rhyme or reason to how to do this. I think the coolest look is kind of just tie-dye random. Sometimes people try to make patterns or do different things, but it's really kind of the color and the technique is what gives it the artistic creativity. So just kind of go for it. So start, and you just want to start laying that color on. So just keep laying those colors in. And the one thing you want to try to do is up at the top where the rubber band is, you want to make sure that you get it nice and saturated up there, because 2 reasons. The paper towel is a little bit bulky there, so sometimes the color doesn't penetrate the towel. quite as well. And when you're laying the color in heavy like that, you're getting more moisture on the towel. So you want to be really careful that you don't tear the towel. And then, like I said, there's no rules. It's kind of fun. Like you can see where the blue and yellow mix, they kind of produce a green, which is cool. So that's it. Once you've got your egg completely covered in color, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna set this aside, and you wanna give it at least 20 minutes to set. Longer if you've got it, but at least 20 minutes, and allow that color a chance to really stain the outside of the egg. So that's it for this technique. We're gonna set this guy aside. We're gonna learn our other two techniques, and then at the end we'll come back and we'll have our reveal of everything that we've done. So that's it for this one. All right, so let's go on to our second technique. I love this technique because we're using natural ingredients. It reminds me a lot of my old theater days when we would do dye projects, and some of my favorites were when we could use natural things like this is onion skin or beets or herbs to create those really rich colors. So this will be so cool. So what you're gonna need for this technique is you're going to need the skins of yellow and red onions. So I have my yellow onion here. I actually skinned the red onion to set this up. So I don't have a whole onion to show you, but use your imagination. You're going to need a square piece of cloth, about 10 by 10. A cotton, a jersey will work. It's got a little bit of stretch to it, but you're gonna need a piece of fabric. You're going to need a shot glass because we're gonna have some tequila halfway through. Just kidding. What the shot glass is for, and I'll show you when we get to the egg, but you're gonna need something to set your egg on as we're working. So this is like a narrow lip shot glass. It works perfect, but anything that you have that you can just stabilize your egg with will work. So you'll need that. You're gonna need some scissors. You're gonna need a rubber band, and obviously you're gonna need eggs. And with this technique, we start with the raw eggs not boiled, and you want them to be at room temperature. Let's get started. So with the onions, what we're looking for is just to use the skin of the onion. So go ahead, and I usually cut the end off because then it just helps all that skin release. Look how nice that comes off. And you only want to use these thin portions of skin. Sometimes when I've been doing this, you can get that second layer of skin off. See, there's actually a third layer underneath there. You only want these thin layers. What happens is when you get down to that last layer of skin that's next to the onion, a lot of times that first part of the onion like peel starts to come off, and then it makes it too thick. So you always want to make sure you're just using the skins. And then once you have the onion skinned, I like to use scissors. So I just start going in, and what you want to do is you want to cut it into small pieces about that size. So the whole onion skin preparation is something that I would recommend doing beforehand. So I did this in the context of having friends over, having a brunch. So I wanted to do as much preparation as possible. And let's face it, the onion skin part is maybe not the funnest part of what we're doing. So having that prepared makes it better for the overall experience. So now we've got our cut up pieces of the golden onion and the red onion. Our next step is we need 2 bowls for water. So go ahead and put some water. And then you're gonna take your cut up pieces of skins and put them into the water. Okay, once you've got your skins in the water, go ahead and just kind of give them a little tap so that we get everything submerged so everything can start getting some water on it. We're gonna take our shot glass. You're gonna take your square of fabric. And again, like I said, this is a narrow lip shot glass, which I find works perfect. There might be other things that you might have that works, but you'll see what we're doing. We're gonna put the cloth there, and then ultimately the egg is gonna sit right here as we work on it. But before we place the egg, we're gonna start by putting a little layer of onion skins down. Now, the goal of this technique is we're going to cover the egg in onion skins, and we're going for a marbled effect. And as you're putting the skins onto the egg, you want to try to alternate between the two colors, because the more altering you do, the more variation and the more marble looking the effect will be. So now we're going to take our egg, and by the way, this technique works well with both white eggs and brown eggs. Since we're working kind of in this natural color palette, the brown of an egg can work really well. So we're gonna use a white egg. So you place the egg on top of our little bed right there. So you can see how the fabric is already starting to draw up around it. But if we hadn't have put those skins there first, there would be nothing underneath to dye the egg. So once this is done, now we just start taking these onion skins and covering the rest of the egg with the skins. It's a little tricky. Like all the things that we've done, there's no set rules. So you just want to start trying to get the best coverage possible as we lay these skins onto the onion. So now we're simply going to take our fabric and very carefully pull it up around the egg, like this, and here, and here. And then I like to just kind of carefully pull that fabric in. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna hold all those onion skins in place so that we can boil the egg, and then the coloration of the onion skin will transfer onto the shell of the egg. So here's where our rubber band comes in again. Take that rubber band, carefully wrap that around like that. Let's get one more. There we go, perfect. So now this is ready to go into our boiling water. We're gonna go on to our third technique, then we'll boil both, and then we'll have our big reveal at the end. All right, so here we are to our third and final technique. So I wanted to show you these. These are baskets that I use to kind of present the materials we're gonna be working with. This technique uses 100% silk to transfer the color onto the egg. So there's a couple of ways you can approach doing this. One thing is thrift stores, great places to find neckties or even ladies' scarves or even blouses. But the thing you have to remember is it's got to be 100% silk. So I found all of these at a couple of thrift stores in my neighborhood. I also found these baskets while I was shopping for the neckties. So I thought this would be a fun way to kind of present things to my guests. And then I also found a couple of scarves that I wanted to use. And I also wanted to share that there are some great resources online, on Amazon and on Etsy both, where you can buy silk scraps. So they're like garment scraps from the industry. So if you don't have time to go out and hunt for ties or scarves, another thing that's fun, depending on who your guests are, invite them to bring their own. Maybe they've got some old ties they want to get rid of, or maybe they want to go out and thrift for a tie. But anyway, however you want to kind of structure the event. Okay, so I'm going to start by giving you an example of using a necktie. So you want to use the exterior part of the tie. That's what's going to go against the egg when you do the technique. So you're going to want to cut it apart and get rid of like the lining and all of those things. All you want is the actual silk fabric from the exterior of the tie. So we're just going to cut this off right here. This will give you plenty of fabric to use on your egg. And so then we go in and we're just going to cut this apart. Generally, there'll be those little stitches that kind of hold it together down the middle. All right, so we've cut it apart. Now what you want to do is go in and you're going to take that interfacing out. Most ties have some sort of an interfacing element to help them hold their shape. Take that out. Then you're just going to cut out the lining. It's usually acetate. So we'll get rid of that acetate lining. Okay, so now you can see we've cut out the lining, we've cut out the acetate. This actually looks pretty good, but sometimes the creases will be more substantial. So you want to just take an iron, give that a quick iron just to get it nice and flat. Okay, so like we did with the onion skin technique, find something that you can stabilize your egg on and put that piece of Put your piece of cotton over. Again, this external piece of fabric is gonna do the same thing that it did with the onion skins. It's gonna hold the fabric in place so that when we're boiling it, it'll keep that fabric secured around the eggshell. So we put our fabric here, and then we lay our piece of silk over it, just like that. And we want to use white eggs for this, and these eggs are also unboiled because we're going to boil them for the technique. So you just place your egg in the middle, and then I like to draw the silk up first and kind of get it in place around the egg, kind of pull it in around the top, you can see that. And then after you've done that, then you can pull up the cotton all the way around, kind of secure everything in place. Then once you've done that, you can just kind of adjust it. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. Pull it together at the top, and then we'll take our rubber band, smooth that over there a little bit, take our rubber band, and secure that. So that's it. And then I like to, because I'm a little OCD, I like to kind of trim off this excess here. Also makes it easier to fit more into the pan where you're gonna boil them. But that's what's gonna go into the boiling water. So now I'm gonna show you a variation on that first version of this technique. You can get as creative as you want. Just remember that the idea is that the pattern or the print on the silk will transfer to the egg. Now, I do wanna say one thing that I just thought of. Sometimes garments say they're silk, but there might be a percentage in it that's not. So I've had some experiences where the color didn't transfer quite as well. And also because of the age of what you're using, if it's not new silk and it's an older tie or something like that because of, you know, the washing or the processing and all of that, you just never know. But that's also kind of part of the fun because you never know exactly what the result is going to be. So if you've got some creative people in your group that are doing this, here's another little variation on how you can do it. So start with your main piece of fabric, which goes onto here. Then you can cut other pieces of maybe contrasting colors or different prints and lay those across. And just remember, whatever the fabric that's closest to the egg is, that's the print that's gonna transfer. So keep that in mind. You know, what I love about doing this kind of activity, and especially in the context of like a brunch, you're bringing people together to do this kind of craft. You're together as a group, and unfortunately, in our busy lives that we have right now, oftentimes people don't have these opportunities. This reminds me a lot of the type of things I grew up doing in my home as a child. So creating that experience for people to come, forget about their daily lives, and just have some fun doing this is a great way to think about doing this. Okay, so we're gonna fold these strips up just like this. So kind of hold those as we pull them up around the edge of the egg. Just be careful. There we go. And then once those strips are up, you'll just pull your main fabric up, and just be careful as you're doing it. You just want to kind of come up. You can hold that, pull that up and around just like that. And then once you've got your fabric, so you can see the fabric is all the way around the egg, now we pull up that kind of protective outer layer, which is gonna hold the fabric to the egg as it boils. So we pull that up just like that. So we have all of our silk on the inside, the cotton outer fabric is holding it in place, and now we'll do our same trick with the rubber band just to secure that. Just like that. And as I said, I like to cut off the excess just so we're not dealing with quite as much. So then that's what we have. That's what's gonna go into the boiling water. And I also wanted to mention that the white fabric that I use on the exterior, I literally found a twin white bed sheet at the thrift store as well, and that gave me enough fabric for all of the projects that we're doing. Okay, so now it's time to boil the two versions that we did, the onion skin and the silk fabric. We have to boil those to kind of set the technique that we're doing. So with the onion skins, we're gonna put a little bit of dye into the boil water. And what that does is, if there's portions of the egg that are not exposed, or covered by the onion skins, it'll take on some dye so we don't have white showing through. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of food coloring in the water there, just like that. And then I'm not gonna give a precise amount, but I'm gonna call it a splash of white vinegar. That just kind of helps set the dye into that. Perfect. So then this is what we're gonna put the onion skins into. So we'll take those, just drop those in to there. You wanna make sure they're completely submerged. All right, so we've got those in there. And then our fabric eggs just go into plain water. We don't have to add anything else to that. So put those in there. And then we're just gonna bring those to a boil. We're actually gonna boil them about 15 minutes, which is longer than you would normally boil an egg. But since we're doing these techniques, the little bit of extra time helps set the color onto the eggs. Okay, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. So we have our 3 techniques here. We have our paper towel food coloring technique, we have our onion skin technique, they're all boiled and ready, and we have our silk fabric transfer technique. So this is the exciting part. Let's see how they turned out. All right, so there's our first. And what's cool about this technique is you can see how texture from the paper towel transfers onto the egg as well. All right, so that's our first technique. Now let's do the onion skins. Okay, so this is a lighter egg, so this is where you can really see that more kind of marbled effect. Last but not least, we have our silk fabric transfer technique. I love this. It's always fun to see what the end result is. And I've seen a lot of variations, so you never know. Yeah, so as you can see on this one, this is one that we did the stripe with, and even though this was like a super dark color, it only gave us a very light transfer, but still looks cool. Oh, I love that. And last but not least, fingers crossed. Oh, it looks great. That's it. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been such a pleasure to share this with you. I want to remind you that when we're doing something like this, remember, it's not all about the outcome, it's the experience of doing it. Think of the value in creating this moment for your guests, having them into your home, having the opportunity to sit around doing these things, have a conversation, and enjoy each other's company. Just a little more about the techniques. My personal favorite, I love the onion skin technique. It's a little bit more subtle, but this palette appeals to me. So you never know what your guests are going to enjoy the most, but as I said, it's not about the final result, it's the process of doing it. So our manifesto moment for today is, we believe luxury is a mindset, not a price tag. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much for sharing these last 3 episodes with us. We hope you've learned something and maybe you'll be inspired to have your own exceptional brunch. Thanks again.